I've been doing this a long time. And I'm not saying talking on radio and having my own show. I've been doing that for 15 years. But following sports, I've been following it for a long time. And I can tell you that in the heat of the moment, I too get caught up in, hey, the officiating. I thought in spite of the fact that a couple of replays went the way of the Patriots, I felt like there were a couple calls that went actually against the Patriots. I don't think there's any preset agenda. Anybody who thinks there's a preset agenda is, and you're like, well, there's Tim Donaghy. Like, okay. Do you think in the heat of the moment in the National Football League, when there's a bang, bang play, you're sitting there going, wait, was that the Rams or the Patriots and who hit each other? Wait, do I? No. I've long suggested, and this was not simply my suggestion, somebody suggested to me, and I thought it was a brilliant suggestion, that for replays, the officials and the replay officials should have to view them in real time. In real time. You understand that? In real time. So, because you're going to find flaw in most anything that happens in professional sports and collegiate sports when you watch it in super, super slow motion. And I've tried to make the case, and maybe I didn't do the perfect job of it, but one of the big issues with the Saints and what appears to have been a blown defensive pass interference call is it isn't as obvious at the actual point of contact. And if you're looking at it from the view of the officials or from any view other than behind, here's the parallel. Okay. When Julian Edelman would look like he muffed the punt, right? From one angle, you're like, ooh, I think it touched his thumb. Then all of a sudden they give a different angle. You're like, oh, that came nowhere near his thumb. From behind the play in New Orleans, you're like, man, here comes the football. The hit is before the football. It ain't even close. But then when you're on the sideline view or the game view and you actually slow it down, the ball gets there only slightly after the contact is actually made. So I understand that Sean Payton feels like he got screwed. I understand that Saints fans feel like they got screwed. And I also understand that in the context of that game, had that been deemed a first down, with only one timeout in the pocket of the Rams, they could have run the football down, they could have run the clock down, kicked a field goal, and the Rams probably don't have much time to get a game-tying field goal from Greg the Leg. But can we not say that decided the game? Trent Dilfer pointed out plenty of other things. Of course, the Rams on the previous possession had a missed face mask on Jared Goff. By rule, hand on face mask, easy call. And they should have had first and goal to go, which they could have been up instead of tied, and it would have dramatically changed the game. Additionally, let's look at the Saints' possession. They come out of the 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning. And instead of running the football and bleeding the Rams out of both of their timeouts, running it on first, running it on second, running it on third. The Rams would have got the football back with less than a minute to go and no timeouts on the road. What would have happened? But instead, they throw it on first down, and Drew Brees throws a ground ball. Drew Brees is a Hall of Fame quarterback who throws a ground ball. And I understand if you're going to miss, you miss low. He missed 5 feet low. It was Tim Tebow-like on a slant route. It was a safe play call, one that he has thrown 10,000 times in his life, and he threw a gutter ball. And if you really want to break it down, on third down on that route, which was wide open, it wasn't open at all. And he threw the ball inside instead of outside. And it could have easily been intercepted had the defensive back played the ball instead of playing the man. Oh, and look, I hate overtime rules. I was way ahead of this thing before all these other people got on radio and TV and going, hey, these overtime rules don't make sense. Right? The overtime rules do not make sense. They used to have sudden death, which means you get the ball, you score, you win the game. If you don't, the other team scores, they win the game. People wanted teams to both have a chance at the ball, which they do, but they don't, as we saw in the Patriots game, right? Like, well, if you score a touchdown, you win, but if you score a field goal, that's not enough points to win. That doesn't make any sense. You're trying to make both sides happy, and what's happened today? Nobody's happy. Has anybody pointed out that the game wasn't decided on a coin toss in Kansas City? Because it wasn't decided on a coin toss in New Orleans, because the Saints got the ball at home with a chance to win the game. And they didn't even get a field goal. They didn't flip the coin and go, oh, you win. They flipped the coin and said, you get the ball and you got 100 yards to go. You're like, well, it's not 100 yards. It's 80 or it's 75. No, it's 100. You got to kick off wherever they field it. The Chiefs are allowed to play defense because the Rams played defense and got the football back and won the damn game. So you can sit here and say, hey, one call. I get it. It stinks. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. We've seen plenty of games feel like, man, one call. Des Bryant's play is ruled a catch. Then all of a sudden the Cowboys go up. Should be pointed out, Packers would have had the ball back at home, and a guy named Aaron Rodgers is pretty damn good, would have the football back. We can point out several calls went the way of the Seahawks the very next week, or the previous week went the way of the Cowboys against the Lions. Remember that? But the Seahawks, that miraculous comeback where Green Bay muffs an onside kick, and there are other plays that went their way. But the fact is, not only did the Saints still retain possession after the blown defensive pass interference, which was not as egregious as I believe it looked based upon that one camera angle. They kicked a field goal and had a chance to stop the Rams. They didn't. They then got the ball back with a chance to score and win the game. They didn't. And when they had the ball before the blown defensive pass interference call, they didn't run the clock down like they could have, and Drew Brees threw an absolute scud missile on first down. That ain't on the refs. And if Sean Payton didn't completely lose his mind and lose his fecal excrement over one call, he might have called a better game in overtime. He lost his cool. His team lost their cool. And in spite of the fact they had several advantages in their back pocket, playing at home, Rams only one timeout, no one could hear, they won the coin toss and got the football, they did not win the game. Blamers blame. Listen, we've seen this before, okay? We've seen this before. And people want to say, well, this coach is too conservative, that coach is too conservative. I take you back to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Falcons are up 28-3. Julio Jones makes arguably the greatest catch in the history of the sport. Considering context, Super Bowl, considering the actual catch. And it should have ended the game. Should have ended the game. Up 28-3 after arguably the greatest catch in the history of the sport. All you got to do, you don't even have to run the football. You just take a knee. Take a knee, run the clock. Take a knee, run the clock. Take a knee, run the clock. Kick a field goal. Game over. Instead, get a little greedy. Try to make a play. Something doesn't go your way. And all of a sudden we become critical of officiating and not realizing that the conservative way, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know everything about football. I don't. Okay? I just like you, learn from watching Troy, learn from watching Romo, learn from listening to Trent when he joins us and all these other guys when they come on and join us. But what I do know is math. Okay? And I know the simple math of sport. And whether it's basketball, whether it's football, the difference between those sports and baseball. Baseball is no time limit. There's an out limit. And there is a similar sort of math there. It's like, do I try and get the runner at home? Hey, dude, you're up 5 runs. Just get the runner at first base, right? Just get the guy out. That's the math of baseball. The math of basketball is how many possessions do I have based upon this lead? If I shoot as the shot clock goes off at the end of every possession, there's a certain math to it. Lengthening the game versus shortening the game. And there's the same math to football. It doesn't mean that the Saints win, but it increases the probability of them winning. Running down the clock. Run the ball on first down. Run the ball on second down. Run the ball on third down. And while you can say, hey, Doug, that's playing conservatively. You're right. I didn't say take a knee. There's all kinds of running plays you can run. And by the way, you have really good running backs. You can run jet sweeps. You can do a million different things. You can actually get a first down while running the football. But the other thing that happens is you increase your chances of winning, or maybe more importantly, you decrease the other team's chances of coming back and tying or beating you. Look, they're not the only team that screwed up. Kansas City Chiefs in regulation had the football, called timeout, 16 seconds to go, took one shot at the end zone, and decided, you know what? The risk isn't worth the potential reward. The problem with that was because they didn't take another shot or two that they could have had at the end zone, they never got the ball back because the defense couldn't stop the greatest quarterback we've ever seen play in big situations. So you can sit here and say the Saints got screwed, the Seahawks got screwed against the Steelers in the Super Bowl, the Lions got screwed against the Cowboys in the playoffs. The Dez Bryant caught the football. The Packers should have beaten the Seahawks. And in that argument, in the context of your argument, you're not wrong. Their officials make mistakes, egregious errors. But so do coaches, so do players. And screwing up the math, giving the other team a greater probability or possibility of coming back and tying and beating you, especially when you still have opportunities. Do not forget, the Saints were at home and they got the ball back to start overtime with a Hall of Fame quarterback and a Hall of Fame play caller. And they turned it over, which, by the way, is the number one determinant into who wins and who loses basketball and football. He who commits more turnovers generally loses the game. Or you can blame the refs.